We're very excited to have the panel back here on Breaking Points.
It's historic, actually.
It's a historic moment. Many people are saying. We've got two fantastic guests. Ryan Girdusky, he's a political consultant and author, and we've got Sam Mangold-Lenett. He is a staff editor over at The Federalist. Guys, we've been hyping this one up big, so we appreciate you. You're our first in-studio guest. I already think it looks pretty nice. Let's go and see that beautiful wide shot, people.
Look at that. It's so much
Premium
less awkward than the old set when we would have guests on.
I'm loving it a lot. Okay, so the reason we guys are here is we wanted to do a panel about America First, the case for Ron DeSantis and for Trump. And it's, I think, an interesting way to approach it because the way that most of the media talks about this, they leave kind of the policy out and then they just focus on the politics. We're actually going to put the politics second and focus a little bit on policy. Ryan, I want to start with you. You're somebody who's been active in the movement now for quite a long time. You're somebody
just call me old.
You're not old. He's not old. He looks great here on the camera. But Ryan, you were somebody who were making the case on America First, even very early days, 2015 onwards. Somebody who's voiced some support now for Governor Ron DeSantis. So I think it'd be valuable to start with you and kind of lay out what is America First and why does Ron DeSantis kind of fit into that vision?
Well, I think that we've had now several decades of the people running our government, putting working class people last, and oftentimes working for their own ideas and their own narratives about globalism or international organizations, international peace missions. And lost in that is the fact that working class people in this country, they have died earlier than they have in decades. They're poorer than they have been in decades. They don't have real material wealth as they had. A lot of their children who have fought in these wars are now coming back addicted to fentanyl. I think that Trump did a great job at breaking through the Republican narrative, the longstanding Republican narrative that dates back to Reagan. However, when he was president, he didn't do many of those things. He hired people that he either was related to or that was brought to him by the RNC. And that was really, really bad for a lot of things. We never got a wall. We never got most of his immigration policies. The factories, jobs that did come back, they didn't go to the Midwest. We didn't get infrastructure. I mean, Washington loves spending money. He couldn't even get them to spend money on infrastructure. And I think we need somebody more capable and more understanding of how to use the levers of power in the direction we want to go. And I think that's Ron DeSantis.
Sam, why don't you go ahead, America First, kind of how do you disagree with anything that Ryan just laid out there? And then give us the case for Trump within the America First framework.
Yeah, so I agree with what Ryan said about the left behind Americans. I think of it as a complete and utter prioritization of the people who really are the bedrock of the nation. Working class Americans grow the food. They build the stuff here, or at least they used to build the stuff here before we stopped building stuff here. I think there are valid concerns about staffing in the former Trump administration. And I think a lot of those concerns will be remedied moving forward should Trump be the 47th president. But I do understand the concern. I think it's also imperative to note that the political moment we're in the conservative movement is entirely because of the MAGA movement. It's entirely Trump's paradigm that's built around his brand, or not his personal brand, but his political movement.
So, Ryan, let me push you a little bit on DeSantis here. And obviously, I don't really have a dog in this fight. Right. You guys are on a different team than me. But in terms of DeSantis, his legislative track record is very much of that standard Reagan conservative. He's many times talked about how he wants to cut Social Security and raise the age. And he wants to cut Medicare and, debt in the deficit. And, it was very much in line with sort of the standard views on foreign policy, the kind of John McCain type neocon views on foreign policy. So, and even now, it's not like what he's running on is a restoration of the working class. He's running, we're going to make Florida's the place where woke goes to die, and he's fixated more on the cultural side of the conservative spectrum. So what makes you think that he fits with that working class vision that you have?
Well, when he was governor, one of the things that he did, Florida is a very expensive state to live in now. There's a lot of people who move there. Was he did the hometown heroes law, which is if you're a nurse or if you're a firefighter or a policeman or a teacher and you have to live close to a vicinity of a very expensive place, the state helps pay for your down payment of your house. He suspended sales taxes on baby items for working class mothers. They did a lot of stuff that was towards working class people. Is he running and messaging on it the correct way? No, I'd like to sit there and see him do more. But I think that the intentions and the conversations that he's having, I think if there's someone capable of actually executing that, it's going to be DeSantis more so than than Donald Trump.
Well, so that's, Sam, let's talk about the staffing that you were saying. Ryan and I were quite literally covering it, a lot of it at the time. I personally observed, interviewed Trump 4 separate times. He always seemed to care much more about his own personal issues than really kind of the movement issues that you're talking about. You described it as his movement not as personal. What makes you think that, given the way that he demands loyalty tests and hiring, his relatives who don't necessarily face the
they're Democrats
who don't
they're
hold
closer
the
to Krystal than they are.
Let's just I will let Ryan say that. I'm not going to say it. But I think that's a fair criticism. What gives you the confidence that Jared Kushner is not going to come right back into the White House? Reince Priebus won't be the chief of staff again. Why do you have such confidence in a second term rather than what happened in the first term and we all saw it?
So in regard to Jared Kushner, I think he's distanced himself pretty far from this go-around, just for whatever personal reasons. There's also the whole, punish Trump arc aspect of it. There's the whole drive for, I don't want to say revenge, but the want for a comeback type thing. He's surrounding himself, from my understanding, with people who are better able to sniff out the landmines, which frankly should have been from the get-go. But being a political outsider, there's a bit of naivety with that. So my understanding is that with a healthy dose of skepticism and cynicism, they'll be able to better place their feet than they were the first time around.
Ryan, what's your response?
I totally disagree with that. I mean, he's got Chris DeSavita, who is his chief political person. The guy was from Paul Ryan's campaign, and he ran Tony Gonzalez for Congress in Ohio, who voted for impeachment. It's his #1 political guy right now. AFPI, America, whatever the whole AFPI think tank is, they're going to staff the White House. They were created from Jared Kushner's #2 in the White House. So it's all Jared Kushner people left and right. And Trump's demand for an arc, for a redemption, is not that he's going to finally give in to his base. It's going to finally earn love from the media. That's who he's really appealing to. I mean, Trump would much more care about a positive headline from Maggie Haberman than from the Daytona Weekly. And, that's just the truth. So when he gets in there, I mean, what was he working on right before he left office? An amnesty. There's no evidence whatsoever that he wouldn't just do that because he's finally going to get the love from the media. Morning Joe will have a great segment on him saying, wow, Donald Trump, he finally did it. He'll get all the love he finally wants from the people who hate him the most, which is all he craves. And there's that sociopathic cynicism that he just can't help himself. He can't control his fingers on Truth Social. He can't control his mouth in public. There's no evidence whatsoever he's going to be able to control anything. And, and Jared will be going to foreign countries, probably bribing them for more money like he did with the Qataris and the Saudis. So, he's Hunter Biden without the kids and the hookers. That is basically what you're looking at with the Trump family. And there's only so much more that we could sit there and say, no, this time he's going to get it right. He's 77 now. That's the magic number.
What do you say, Sam?
I mean, I totally understand the cynicism.
Yeah.
But I would just highlight that not to bring the personalities into it, I don't see how any Republican administration would be able to avoid any landmines put by bureaucrats or the deep state or whatever. I just don't see how a DeSantis administration could better sniff things out.
That actually kind of gets to the question I wanted to ask both of you guys, which is, it's hard for me to see why you have any faith in either one of these guys to actually deliver for the working class. When, we've seen post-Trump, first of all, Trump's major accomplishment in office is a giant tax break to, the wealthiest Americans overwhelmingly.
Well, he let criminals out of prison, too. Don't forget that. That was the second biggest one.
I support criminal justice reform, but I know you have a different position on that. But, I mean,
he's not wrong,
that's his biggest accomplishment in office is a giant tax cut. Why? Because that's all the infrastructure that backs the Republican Party. They had that tax cut. He's incompetent, but they had that tax cut locked and loaded, ready to go. And those are still the institutions that run the Republican Party. And you see it with, the current House Republican caucus. Yeah, they were sort of shamed into claiming, we're not going to touch Social Security and Medicare. I see a headline today, they're plotting okay, well, how can we actually cut Social Security and Medicare? The elites in the Republican Party have not changed. Ron DeSantis is backed by those elites. I mean, it's very much a donor play from Ron DeSantis. Trump has more grassroots-based support, but there's no track record for him actually delivering on any of the things that might help working class people. So it's just not clear to me why you would think either of these people would deliver.
But if it was a donor play, DeSantis would not have done E-Verify. The donors were screaming, don't do it. They wouldn't have done the pro-life thing.
But look at how he folded on Ukraine. right? I mean, he got pushed back on Ukraine and he flip-flopped and he was uncomfortable.
But that wasn't a policy.
That clearly was pressure from the donor. But just look where he gets his money. I mean, that's why I'm saying it's a donor play. It's just, listen, we all know how Washington works, right?
I get it.
You know that those are the people whose calls he will take. Those are the people
he doesn't take anyone's calls, which they complain about constantly.
He's not even running on the things that you want him to run on. So what makes you think that he's going to,
But I don't run his PR. So,
but what makes you think that if you run on it, there's like a small chance you might do it when you're off. You're not even talking about it, like it's not going to happen.
Okay, there are 3 things that the donors said don't do this year. Disney, he did it. E-Verify, he did it. Abortion, he did it. So what evidence is there that he's going to kowtow to the donors? And Nikki Haley's criticism to him was, you got money from them. How could you possibly hurt them? Come to South Carolina, Disney. That was her little, like, how dare you defy the donors? That's her attack. So if he's bowing to the donors, he's doing a bad job at it.
That's a fair point. He's kicked on some of their stuff. Crystal's right that he did fold a little bit on Ukraine, which was different.
He doesn't have a very well thought out policy, and he said point blank, it might be over by the time I become president. So
well, we hope so.
I hope
unlikely,
so.
Unfortunately. So, given that, though, Ryan, in terms of the donor support, it is on. Ken Griffin, many of the other elites, the billionaires in the Republican Party, they do support Ron DeSantis. Why do you have confidence that he will be better able to kick their influence than Trump did?
If you look at what donors have said about him, it's the constant. He doesn't take our phone calls. He does. That's what. The billionaire from New York, the Greek guy.
Cassidy.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm not giving to him because he doesn't take my phone calls. He doesn't return my phone calls. There's a constant complaint about him. He's not personable. He doesn't show up at my events.
This is the thing about him being like socially awkward, basically.
But it's not socially awkward.
I mean, isn't that what
that's the accusation. I know I've met him. He wasn't that socially awkward. I know people way worse. But go to the streets of Washington, D.C.
But they're not running for president.
Well, yes, that's true. But it's not that it's not social. It's that he's not owned by them. And if he was, I mean, E-Verify is one of the hardest things you could do in Florida between the agricultural lobby, the tourism lobby, and the construction industry. And he still managed to do it. And they were all pressuring him and the Florida GOP. And he did it. And he was like, no, you can't have illegals stealing jobs from American workers. And it got passed amazingly because I didn't think it was going to.
Right. So, Sam, I think that's also a fair point, though, is that while Trump was in office, Steve Schwartzman's on the phone, Rupert Murdoch's on the phone. He loved getting the praise from all of the donor class, like, while he was there. I actually personally witnessed it whenever some of these guys were there, and the way he would suck up to them, the Fortune 500 CEOs. Why do you have confidence that's not going to happen this time around?
Oh, I want to push back on something real quick.
Sure.
I think a major reason why DeSantis was able to accomplish a very successful and great legislative agenda was because he had a very ideologically aligned Florida legislature. There's no guarantee that success would translate over to Congress. That success was able to be achieved because Florida was aligned with him and coalesced around him. I'm very skeptical that success could be achieved at the national level. I hope it could, but I don't think it would be as smooth as butter as it was in Florida.
Absolutely true. But what you could do is you could do a Schedule F and start firing people who are bureaucrats. There's things an executive actually can do that can fire bureaucrats. They could move agencies to different locations and let the bureaucrats not want to go to the middle of Omaha or wherever.
For sure.
And that's what Trump did for that one, I think was Interior or something.
It was BLM, the Bureau of Land Management.
But yeah, that's what he did. He moved them out of D.C. and people did not apply for their job again. There's things that you could sit there and do as the executive. You could do schedule. There's a couple schedules you could do to sit there and get rid of bureaucrats who defy you and hold you back. That's totally possible. Is it possible to get every legislative agenda through with a 60-vote threshold? Probably not. But with a lot of the issues that I care about, immigration, trade, foreign policy, you don't need Congress.
Let me just the last thing, Ryan, on this part, and then I will move to the horse race part and look at the polls and all that good stuff. But I guess, Ryan, when I look at DeSantis and try to take my own ideological view out of it, I just see a guy who's trying to find the spot for he's twisting in the wind. I mean, when it was cool to be a Reagan conservative and a neocon, that's what he was. Now he sees the rise of Trump. He's like, that's the thing I need to get in on. So let me try to be that thing, and let me try to copycat Trump, and even his mannerisms and whatever he would try to copy rhetorically.
Okay.
And so what gives you confidence that if the worm turns a little bit more and some of the issues that you care about fall out of fashion again, and he's under pressure from whoever, from the public, et cetera, that there's actually a core ideological commitment to any of this?
Well, a lot of people try to be like Trump after 2016. And what they thought being Trump was being an asshole on social media and being loud and abrasive and still voting for tax cuts, and that's it. Like the MAGA Inc. brand that some of the worst politicians in the country have on them is literally just Bushism with a different bumper sticker. And a lot of governors do the same thing too. DeSantis didn't do that. DeSantis really reformed education. It wasn't just about black and school choice and don't worry about it and whatever. He got into the policy weeds. I do my school board elections. I have done over 300 nationwide. The only 2 elected officials have ever called me to ask me about it, and one was DeSantis. He was the first one. So he really does care about process and in-depth things, and he does not have to go as far as he has. When did we ever think, as in the 2000s, that Florida would be considered the free state and Texas wouldn't?
Yeah.
That's
a
massive change under one person's administration and only one person. That's Ron DeSantis.
Sam, I want to actually give you a similar version of that, which is with Trump. You know, like we said, we've all had experience with Trump. We've watched him change his mind constantly, both on the corest issues to Republicans, from like Reaganite Republicans, but also even on trade, on many of these immigration, any of these issues, amnesty. Considering that, why do you have confidence that this man will actually do even some of what you want him to do when he's in office? When we already had 4 years, we didn't accomplish much of it. It wasn't just staff. Much of it was also up to him personally.
I think on trade in particular, was one of the more consistent aspects. I think that's really his strong suit, is the economic populism. And that's part of the reason why so many working class Americans are hopeful because of him. He actually represents, at least culturally, what they need, what they yearn for. You know, there is obviously no guarantee in anything in politics. I'm not going to bet the house on anything. Yeah. But I think there is, that is his strength, is going to war for the economic populism. We got the USMC trade deal out of him. True. And that renegotiated NAFTA, which gutted the Midwest. I think that's a major reason to be optimistic for a future Trump administration.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.